Welcome to the Mr. R Show, presented by the MRR Institute. This podcast is designed specifically for tax professionals looking to scale and modernize their practice by maximizing revenue through resources. Join us as we explore expert strategies, innovative tools, and actionable advice to help you navigate the evolving landscape of the tax industry. Whether you're aiming to grow your business or enhance your client experience, you're in the right place. Now, let's get to the show and transform your practice together.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Mr. R Show, brought to you, presented, edited, and we could say unscripted by the MRR Institute. So what does this show actually mean for you? If it's your first time here, the greatest thing about this, right, is everybody loves free, but we take it even one step further. When we offer you something free, we just don't want it to be, it's not a BOGO, Cyber Monday, Black Friday special, nothing like that. We're talking about a free CPE. So I want to start this show off by saying that for a number of reasons. One, I think it actually adds some credibility to what we're talking about here. Two, if you actually look in the show notes, wherever you listen to this, you're going to see a link right at the very top, and that is going to direct you straight to EarMark. EarMark is a platform we've partnered with to provide you that free CPE for, again, tax pros. Hopefully you're a tax pro listening to this. If you're not, well, you're in a good place. You learn more about what your tax pros learn about. So without further ado, let's actually jump into the topic today. We're going to look at scaling revenue through strategic partnerships. So specifically on this, we're going to get into some good details. Chris is going to take us through a little journey on how him and his team and teams, we should say, have utilized this in their private practice, and also some thoughts we have on, opportunities for growth, et cetera, et cetera. Again, those examples, don't have to use them specifically, but just the way that you approach some relationships may actually turn into some strategic partnerships. So let's go wasting time. You've probably heard enough of me. Chris Picciurro, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
Oh, it's good to be back, and excited to talk about this practice management hack that we've been using for many, many years. And I have believed for a long time that collaboration over competition is very important. So just kind of put that in your mind. You're a tax and accounting professional right now. It's the first kind of step of understanding of how you operate might be you're trading your time for money. Maybe you're in that process of exchanging your knowledge for money, or maybe you're already doing what we're doing in our private practice. You are exchanging your knowledge for money, and that's over and over and over again, meaning you have a full subscription model. And when I went to, this moving towards a full subscription model in our private CPA practice, one of the scary things, even though the revenue is great, but one of the scary things someone might think about is, well, wait a second. My revenue is capped now, right? I've got a monthly subscription every month, and that's it. Well, one of the funny things you have to realize is that about 2/3 of the time, maybe even 3/4 of the time you work with a client on something, there's an additional value add even on that membership model that you could provide to that client. And a lot of times you're doing things and not getting compensated for them, or you're making referrals and you're not getting compensated for them. So this episode is about building strategic partnerships. We're going to talk about that can help you scale your business. And some strategic partnerships can actually be revenue sources, which is even better. For us, we started off with really in that subscription model thinking, okay, well, we're not going to have much, as far as revenue sources other than those subscriptions. And we do charge a setup fee and that sort of stuff. But guess what? Now in our practice, we are I shouldn't say luckily, but through creating the proper structure and doing the proper engineering, we are really helping clients out, reducing their money legally and ethically, reducing their tax, but also working with what we call strategic partners. So I'm excited to talk about that. Share with you what we've done in our private practice. Share with you what I've seen other people do, and I want you to think too, if you're that one woman or one man band, you might start thinking to yourself, geez, I'm wearing a lot of hats, right? And I'm our sales force, I'm our marketing force, I'm our client services force. But the beautiful thing is, if you could build a proper network of strategic partnerships, they are actually your sales force for you. You're not your own sales force. They're really your marketing department. You're going to field the inquiries, but they're out there advocating for you. So that's something I'm excited to talk about today.
And really, Chris, I think, even kind of, I think I'm the king of dumbing things down at times. It's almost like outlining and focusing on the value, really the extreme value that comes along with, the famous or infamous quote of, "Oh, I know a guy." I mean, it's not like you have to be the janitor, the marketing guy, the sales guy, the IT guy, the landscaper, all this stuff, right? And I use the example of almost, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure there's some instances where this is absolutely not correct, but kind of looking at it from outside the box a little bit more as well too, right? So we're looking at it from inside of the tax professional box looking out, right? So almost looking in, there's probably very few maybe financial advisors that also do taxes, right? I'm sure they say, "Oh, well, I have a great tax professional that I can introduce you to." So they're not necessarily, and again, I imagine that could be wrong, that they're actually filing your taxes for you. They're connecting you with somebody. And again, there's
Well,
instances. I don't know if that's a good example or not to
well,
show.
John, yeah, no, that is a great point. One of the things that you might be worried about if you're listening to this about building these strategic partnerships is that, oh no, what if I referred somebody to someone else that does something that I do? Let's do Any good strategic partner is not going to step on your toes and vice versa, right? The other thing is that there accept accept that there's going to be overlap out there in financial, legal, tax, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll processing services. There will be overlap. That's going to happen. So you could either decide to live in a silo and be greeting your customers at the front of the restaurant, seating them, giving them their menus, taking the order, going back in the kitchen, cooking yourself, washing your hands, bringing it out to them, and then busting the tables and cleaning up for the night. Or you can say, I'm okay with being a part of a bigger team. I'm okay with, because ultimately, if you want to scale your business, we had an amazing episode with Chase Berkey, who's a great CPA from Dark Horse CPAs. We talked about the difference between scaling and growing. It's easy to grow. It's hard to scale. And not all growth is good growth. Just because you bring on a new client doesn't mean that's necessarily a good thing. It depends if that client aligns with your vision and what your firm looks like and what your ideal client is. In your ideal client that you're listening to this is probably completely different than ours. And that's okay because every client's unique. I had the I was very honored to talk, we'll do some teaching for the NATP. I think we did year-end planning for businesses. And as I was talking, we had a couple webinars, about almost 1,000 people register for these webinars. So I was thinking like, what's one of the messages? And one of the things I thought about that was worked for us is this. Well, we always talk about ideas are cheap, implementation's valuable. Your tax planning and strategy process should be the same for every client, but the
Proceed.
actual advice is customized. The process is the same, the result or advice is customized. So if you think about that, that's how you can start building some strategic partnerships. And sometimes, you should consider having more than one partner for different services. So for instance, if you um it doesn't mean that you can only work with one financial advisor, one estate planning attorney, one specialty tax firm, one tax mitigation firm. You should have a couple people that you work with that you trust, um, in your Rolodex. And like you said, John, you want to be that person. You want to be that either individual or that firm that your clients say, like, do you think your clients are walking around saying, man, they time blocked great. Man, that signature in their email was amazing. They don't care. What you need is you need to be the practitioner or firm that your client says, I don't know what I would do without this person.
Right. And, I almost take a page out of my wife's book where she's like, "Oh, did you see such and such, posted this on," we'll just say Facebook. And I'm like, "No, I haven't seen that." She goes, "Well, why haven't you seen that?" And I say, "Oh, I'm kind of a selfish social media poster. I go on there to post my own stuff." And why I say that is I'm a consumer of something, and I'm very like it's about me when I'm on there. I really don't care about it. Like I say that because I get on and post my own stuff and don't look at anybody else's. But I say that because of the sense of almost putting what we're talking about here with strategic partnerships and just partnerships as a whole, where thinking about it too from the lens of your clients, right? Like you said, they really don't care how fancy your email signature is. They really don't care how cool your phone number is or your domain for your website or any of this stuff. Sure, they care about some of the tech that they're heavily involved in, right? Which portal you're using, et cetera, for invoicing, all that good stuff. But yeah, if you become the guy or the girl that's got the best connections for anything that they can think of, there's so much value in that. And not just saying, "Oh yeah, I have a guy I can send you to. Here you go. Here's his contact, off you go." And that person falls through or, they completely botch the introduction. So that's where I think you mentioned too about having different people kind of, riding the pine, if you will, as a backup of a backup, maybe of a backup for a specific thing is super important. And not saying everybody's going to botch the relationship or anything, but maybe they get backlogged with stuff. Maybe they go on vacation that you weren't aware about. Little things like that. You having those contacts, you having those resources, so much value. And kind of what I was saying about it's all about them in a sense is that if you're giving them good connections to people, I highly doubt they're gonna be looking for your replacement. Even if somebody you introduce them to does also what you do, like you said, they shouldn't likely be stepping on your toes, but if they do, they might say, "Oh, well, Chris over here actually does XYZ services, and that's great you do this, but you use that." So, hopefully that clears it up.
Exactly. And yeah, that's when you build these strategic partnerships, understand that not every client's going to be a fit for each one. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to, again, take things away from what maybe you're doing so you can scale and potentially monetize it. And the monetization might be as simple as, you know what, here's some more referrals. Or it could be, you know what, we implemented something, and now we get a revenue stream. So there's a lot of opportunities there. First thing I want to do is just think about as a tax professional, tax or accounting professional, what a strategic partnership is, right? Sometimes we think of partnership like, oh man, I'm a lone wolf. I'm a Han Solo, right? I don't want any partners. A partnership doesn't mean that you own equity in each other's company. Just a partnership is it's a relationship that adds mutual value to each other for the better good of your clients or customers. So a great strategic partnership that I utilize every day is peanut butter and jelly because that's what I have for lunch every day, pretty much. But think of who wants to have a peanut butter sandwich or just a jelly sandwich? You put them
Mhm.
together, and now we've got something.
Right.
So first thing you need to do when you're starting to build strategic partnerships, and you might be listening to this right now, and you might have strategic partnerships you didn't know about. And the other thing is it's not just building strategic partnerships, it's also making sure that you're working with companies that share your vision and your ethics and your morals in identifying, because as a tax professional, you are a target to many, many people. You already know you get tons of financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, bankers, lenders. Everyone knows that you kind of hold the key to the client's financial war chest, if you will. And that's a big responsibility that we all have. However, we also know that we need to protect ourselves from potential strategic partners that don't make sense. and align ourselves with the right ones. And guess what? It's okay. We have sometimes a strategic partnership isn't permanent, you know? So that's one thing we have to monitor as we move along. So, but let's start talking about, I think we understand what a strategic partnership is, but let's start talking about how you identify people or companies that would be a good strategic partner, right? Because depending on what type of work you do, that really dictates what you're looking for. So for me, in our firm, we are subscription based, specifically for real estate investors and entrepreneurs. So your clients are going to tell you what strategic partners you should find. A lot of our clients are in real estate. A lot of the clients need to keep track of their time. So I thought, well, gosh, what can I look for a strategic partner that can really help us have a IRS and tax compliant time log, right? And keep track of time put into different real estate properties, if they're meeting that short-term rental loophole, or if they're real estate professional status. So for our firm, that was important to find that partner that we can align with, because it's one thing, if you tell a client, you really should be keeping track of your time better if you're trying to qualify for real estate professional status. Oh, the client says, yeah, that sounds great. How do I do that? Right? So for us, that's important. If you are, if you're in a different line of business, you might have a different strategic partner. So, but identifying, what your clients need. So as you think about, okay, I've got these clients, or, they're, they have a need. It would make our life easier. It'll allow me to do my job better for them. That's a potential strategic partner. So it could be, I know we've had clients we've had great guests on this podcast. For instance, Karina Miller, right? Talked about cannabis industry. So for her, she does audits. Her CPA firm does audits. It does some tax preparation work. But if you're doing attestation or audit work, there's a lot of limitations on what you can, strategic partnerships that you can have as far as revenue. But what are things? Who does she need kind of to be able to help her clients with different stuff? Probably a bank or credit union. I bet she works a lot with different banks and credit unions that refer her business and vice versa. Probably some type of um, uh, payment processing service, right? Because the cannabis industry has its own special rules, and not every company will do that. Maybe a bookkeeping software. So these are just things that these are just alignments that she was going to probably want to make. So,
And Chris, even, looking into it, we talked about identifying, or we started talking about identifying, what the client needs are, and then you obviously having a resource and you making that connection. I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but how do you really go out and find these people? So say I'm your client and say, you know what, Chris, I really need, and nothing like abstract, like, hey, I need somebody to wash the windows on my house. I mean, you can't have everybody in your Rolodex, but you might have somebody like that. We're talking a little bit more focused relationships. But say looking at it and I say, hey, you know what, I need a business attorney, right? Like obviously you're probably not going to say, you know what, I could probably pretend that I'm your attorney, and bad idea. Right. So like, how do you go out and maybe find those individuals if you don't have them already? So kind of a step one in the process.
right. So the step one would be, you're always looking out for the best interests of your clients. So for instance, maybe it's not in that estate planning attorney, or John, maybe we might have a client, maybe you have a lot of clients that are multi-generational businesses. And that there's going to be a transition of ownership from one generation to the next. So a great strategic partner would be someone that does accredited business valuations, a consultant that works in that situation, an attorney, maybe someone that helps you utilize different types of tax strategies. We've talked about in our private practice something called um, a DST, but not the Delaware Statutory Trust, but the Deferred Sales Trust. So thinking about, okay, who do I have in my Rolodex that I can refer them? But here's the other cool thing. I can't tell you how many times a client came to me and said, hey, I'm already working with this amazing person that's helping us transition our ownership. I'd like for you to meet with him or her. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, great. I actually, in my calendar, I have a special type of meeting. It's a half hour Zoom meeting that says a synergy meeting. And I'll reach out to, let's say it's Joe or Joan and say, hey, we have a mutual client. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you're doing. Let's chat, because that could be a strategic. So sometimes those strategic partnerships just fall in your lap, and it happens a lot. One thing you want to do is make sure. So I hope that answers your question.
No, that's perfect. And yeah, I've thought of some even in the past, my marketing agency days, right? Like we didn't do everything. And yeah, I mean, you could be talk about falling in your lap. You could be at a networking event. You could be at a friend's wedding. You could be at a conference, believe it or not, that's actually full of people doing the same thing you are, and they have somebody that they refer to. So it's, I guess, the biggest thing, a little nugget of advice that I can always put in there is almost let it be known if you are looking for somebody specifically. You don't have to beg for it out there, but like you said, they might fall in your lap. You may be surprised where they come in and who they're from. And really, the great thing too about, we'll call it the post-pandemic days, if we will, a little bit more than before, is I think a lot more people now are open to a lot more virtual services than before. It was much more of I need to, look and feel a desk and be able to walk into a door. I mean, certain stuff is still like that, but a lot more of it now has more options, which then opens the doors, obviously, to a lot more people, different types of people, working hours, etc. So I think that that's a huge piece of it. And yeah, I think the biggest thing to take away from that is literally echoing what you said, right? They might literally fall in your lap, but they can only fall in your lap, specific people. And you realize that they're falling in your lap if you know what your clients are looking for or what their need
Right, and
is.
especially if we have a saying, let your best client pick your next client. So if you have an amazing client that's working with another person that you really like, chances are your other really good clients are going to like working that person or firm too. Sometimes you get some oddball. I've had a lot of situations where I've had clients come that wanted to do something. They might have someone in their network that they introduce, and it might just be over that person's head, or they just haven't had experience doing that. And then you might have to bring in your own. But again, these things happen, man.
Mhm.
Um,
You can't forecast
ultimately
everything.
making sure the client is put first. And again, it's always better. So let me just say one more thing about the situation where a client has, I have a client. I've had several clients, and one of them was going through a transition, which it's multi-generational. They had a business transition uh, professional who is an accredited business valuator. Sometimes when you get into these businesses that are worth millions and millions of dollars, you've got gift tax considerations, and there's a lot of other considerations. This person was excellent to deal with, really good. I really enjoyed working with him. I ended up establishing a relationship with him um, after this transaction was completed, and I'm very comfortable with utilizing or referring him to other clients. It doesn't always work that way, but for in that instance, is great. But the good thing you have to remember is there was a situation where with this transaction where things became a little murky. We'll just say, not in a negative way. Just there, if the client kind of went wayward, and it could have easily become uh, a situation where myself and the other professional working in this transaction were pitted against each other. But because we had that rapport from the beginning, and we were able to have some communication and think about what's best for the client, uh, it all worked out. So don't feel threatened if someone else comes in to assist with the transaction with your client. Um, give that person a good opportunity to get to know that person, to figure out what they're trying to accomplish. And, because it's easy to get threatened, right? Sometimes we hoard our clients and we're like, we don't want anyone talking to them. But if we want what's best for them, we know that if it's something we need someone else to help them out with, we should bring them in.
And,
So,
and based off of your experience with that too, and I assume earlier on, right? You probably had the client handoff jitters, maybe, and everybody probably did at one point, or they still do, or they haven't even got to that point where to get him yet. I mean, is there anything that you may have found earlier on, like little tips you might be able to give people that maybe makes them feel a little bit better and maybe not riding the pine so much and seeing how it plays out? Like maybe do you send a follow-up a couple days later, a week, a month later and say, "Hey, just wanted to check up on that, introduction. Did everything go okay?" Or do you think that's kind of overstepping bounds a little?
So this is when someone brings someone in.
Like, say you refer say I'm your client and I'm looking
Yep.
for an attorney and well, attorney might be a bad one because he's not gonna do
Oh, that's
taxes,
okay.
but
Strategic
we'll
partner.
say you say you
Yeah.
refer them or you refer me to them. They do complement or they do the same services as you guys do. What could
Right.
you do to make yourself feel better about that introduction? Would you email
Well,
me,
that
check
yeah,
up?
you could. I mean, ultimately, you're going to be closer to one of them,
Mhm.
most likely, and they could be both really good friends. As you work with someone, less follow up is needed. But in the beginning, there's nothing wrong with making that introduction. Typically, they're going to say, "Yeah, we set up a meeting," and then set yourself a task for 2 weeks later. If the meeting's in a week, it it could be something as formal as a text separately. Hey, did you have a chance to meet Joe Smith or Joan Smith? How did it go? You know, because and then you'll get the feedback you're looking for. So,
Perfect. Perfect.
yep, that's what I would do. I mean, and then still, I mean, some of our strategic partners, gosh, we work on one of them specifically. We're going to work on about 100 cases with them this year. So it can't be that informal, right? We've got some spreadsheets, weekly communication based on cases. So it just depends on how in depth you're going. Another so that's where you've got to just figure out what the situation is. But if you're just starting, start small, right? Let's talk about what a strategic partner looks like as far as what you should be looking for. Then I want to talk through the difference between a revenue and non-revenue strategic partner. And then I'll give you examples of the strategic partners we use in our private CPA practice. Now, yours might be different, but again, we're an open book here at MRR, collaboration over competition. That's what we're focused on. And
Mhm.
actually, John, it's interesting. This is going to sound like a shameless plug for the MRR Institute, but we have a mastermind group, peer-to-peer mastermind group, amazing professionals in that group. And I could tell you, we've already shared strategic partners with each other. We've gotten referrals from them. We've given out referrals. They've referred people to each other, and they've been each other's strategic partner. One example is international tax. We don't do in our private CPA practice inbound international taxation. But if someone comes to us, I've got someone I can refer. Audit work, nonprofit work. So we have these people, you know, in different areas, because a lot of times you can you can get caught up in decision fatigue and trying to figure out also, should I do this? Should I not do this? And say, nope, stay in our lane, do what we do, and and focus on that, and make sure that if don't feel obligated to do everything your client needs done, because if you're telling them that person, you know what, we like our private firm, you know what, you need some bookkeeping work, you need caught up, you've outgrown either doing it on your own, or let me refer you to someone who can do that for you.
Mhm. And that's really glad that you brought up the mastermind because it is cool to almost witness that a little bit. It's almost like watching neurons fire, within the your brain, basically. It's even though and that I think supports my comment a little bit earlier about, you might find, those as you mentioned, you might find those strategic partners tossed in your lap where you least expect it. And I think as I mentioned, you might be at a conference of your peers that offer all of the same stuff as you, which that is the makeup of that group. Everybody is a tax professional in one way or another. And you're right. I mean, I've seen the connections, I've seen the conversations, online within that group, but then also offline, which are a little bit more one-on-one or, a small group setting, which completely changes the landscape, I think, for a couple of those members specifically that I'm thinking of. I mean, one example specifically, I remember a conversation you had with him earlier on, and basically has completely shifted his business model to something that he really only thought of. And I think that conversation started with, and I could be wrong again, it was him asking just a simple question on, how do we do this thing, and I won't mention what that
Right.
thing is, but it's
I mean, I
all
take it
there.
a step further too. I look at our strategic. I look at I look at our strategic partners beyond just referral partners. I mean, the software we use, and we use, our tax preparation software and our CRM. Those companies are our business partners, and I tell them that. I treat them like that
Mhm.
because we need them.
Right?
If you need someone now, is your paper supplier a strategic partner? No, because you could get your paper anywhere. But if you're working with someone that's essential to the operations of your business, be it a piece of software, they're your strategic partner. John, you've done a couple things, and then we definitely dive into how you pick them. You've seen this, and your perspective is great because you're not an accountant. But you've been with me at different conferences, and when we go to the trade show, we're on a mission, right? We're on a mission because we're like, okay, this is my challenge, and I'm looking for a partner that could help us with this, and um, that's important. That's the way we should look at it. Now, if it's something like your shredding company, I don't think. Let's say you have a physical office and you need paper shredded. That's a commodity. That's not a strategic partnership.
Yep. I can honestly say that we've never gone to a conference or trade show and said, "We need to find a new internet provider today." Like, we don't give a hoot. We can figure that out. And Chris, honestly, the way that I look at it, and again, I'm glad you brought up that example too, is, basically we spend all this time, years now we've been doing this in different organizations, basically having a bag of puzzle pieces. We put the puzzle together, and we're missing a few pieces here and there, and we may find one, and then we're missing another one, and who knows where they go. I'll just blame my dog or my daughter, one of the two. And we look at that puzzle, bird's eye view down, and say, all right, we're missing this, this, this. Basically, we write them down, and they're in a note that we have, and this is a perfect example. We share an Apple Note or an Asana task or something like that, and says, you know what, conference XYZ, these dates, we're together these dates, divide and conquer. We find those individuals, and it is great because usually there's not just one person that's present that does it. There's multiple, so we go and talk to each of them, and naturally, there's some differences. There's some similarities. I wouldn't say one may be better than the other, but the output is the same, but how they get to that output, the process is different, and that may work better with the way we do things. So it is cool to see that.
Absolutely. That's that's how it works, man.
And
I
it
mean,
can be
it's
like
it.
that in any industry. I mean, you could be making auto parts, you could be, painting houses, you could be walking dogs, and there's something, just that approach.
Right. Like, I mean, a paint. Yeah, you could be a painting houses, and maybe the paintbrushes are a commodity, but maybe you go somewhere specifically to get your paint mixed, which is essential to painting the houses. Because if you need a paintbrush, you could probably run up to Home Depot and grab a comparable replacement, but you can't have 80 gallons of paint mixed right away. So that's kind of um, yeah, that's one of those things. Well, what should you? Okay, so you're thinking about this, like, what should I look for in a strategic partner? What should I look for? Well, first thing you're going to want to look at, do they have mutual goals and values as you, right? I mean, that's super important. Um, do you have complementary strengths? Complementary is important. Sometimes we tend to align ourselves with people that are just like us, and that's not always the best. John, I mean, you know a lot about our private CPA firm, and you know that my business partner and I are our sense of humor is equally bad. Other than that, and maybe our taste in like movies and stuff, but we have extremely complementary strengths. Like, I'm the visionary, he's more the implementer. You know, we have I try yeah, he's good at certain things that aren't my forte, and vice versa. So think about who has complementary strengths as far as from a strategic partner.
And a lot of those things too, it's not like they're filling out an application. It's not like you're sending them an email. It's like, oh, well, identify yourself as being strong in organization. Like, you probably get that. And this is more of a question for you personally, like how you've done it, but you probably get that read from somebody within the first few moments of talking to them, and then a little bit more of a deeper conversation, right? Like, unless they're really good at
Oh, I
selling
can figure it out
themselves.
quick. Yeah, I'm gonna figure out if they're organized. It's really easy
Mhm.
when you meet them. and you kind of start talking and stuff, think about giving them an opportunity to do some type of follow-up, right? It could be, hey, we talked about this. Here's a podcast episode. So you're gonna find out, it's kind of an innocent thing, like if they do follow-up, you know. But that's follow-up so important. Consistent follow-up. So if I meet someone, I will all you had to send two sentence email maybe. Hey, great to meet you. Here's a link to our podcast. We talked about X topic. Please let me know your thoughts. And if they reply, if they take interest in it and they invest some time into the relationship, then you'll do the same. Make sure that someone's very client-centric, right? Make sure that they are focused on the best result possible for your client and not necessarily what the financial outcome is going to be for them, right? I mean, yes, we all need to be compensated. However, sometimes these partners are really worried about sales and not helping the client. Let me give an example. The person that at the auto dealership that's trying to sell your client a 6,000-pound vehicle, because for some reason they think buying a heavy vehicle is a great tax decision. And that's buying a vehicle is not a tax strategy. It could be a business decision with a tax benefit, but I'm not going to have a strategic partner at a dealership because they're funny. I don't know that they're going to be client centric necessarily, right? Maybe that's a bad example.
No,
Make sure
no,
they're
that's actually a really good one, believe it or not. I know you think it might be bad. That is a great example. Like they maybe will refer you stuff, but you're most likely going to be referring them more than it's going to be coming back, and they're more inclined to serve their own needs than what that client needs in the long run, should say. Which that really is a good example, believe it or not.
absolutely. I would say that so yeah, I mean, being client centric, being transparent, right? I'm okay if I refer someone to a client or refer a client to someone and that person says, yeah, I'm not, it's not a great fit. Transparency could be price too. We've got a situation where we've been in our private CPA practice. We've been approached by one of our strategic partners right now that's trying to go into another line of business, and they trust us. So we're somewhat of a guinea pig, a little. And I've had a couple meetings about this. It could be very beneficial for everyone. Yet they don't have their stuff together, for lack of a better term. They're not ready to take on this line of business because I have people that are interested in this line of business that I think could benefit, but they're not ready for it. And I'm starting to get the feeling that they're not being as transparent as I'd like because, the last two times I've needed more information, it's like, oh, sorry, it took so long. They're figuring things out. So I feel like they should have maybe explained a little more in the beginning that where we're at in the process. I'll give you an example. We're opening up some lines of business in our private CPA practice. Some things that we outsource, we're very deeply considering bringing in. But it's important to tell your client, like, let's say you are a tax professional and you say, you know what, I'm going to process payrolls. That's not what we're doing. Tell your client, hey, we're going to start processing payroll. We feel like we could really help you out with that. But we're just launching this year. You're going to be one of the first 3 clients I'm going to do this with. Make sure that they understand that. So transparency. Use technology. I've said you've got if you're going to be working on mutual clients with people, make sure that that's in tune. I mean, we've got some strategic partners that we have a mutual Slack channel. Not advocating for Slack. We have some that we have shared spreadsheets that we could track and task projects. If someone, like, we're a virtual CPA firm, a private CPA firm, if that we're not going to work with strategic partners that don't have a virtual way of doing business. That's just not going to it's not a good alignment. Doesn't mean that they're bad or good. It just isn't aligned.
And
so make sure that
some bad examples of it, right? Because I'm full of those. They that would be like you being very obviously client centric, but tech focused, right? and you then partner with somebody who only accepts faxes, right? That's their main mode of communication. They don't have a smartphone. They don't. It's almost holding you back versus filling a void that you may have. And then also, if I can just jump back just briefly too about identifying somebody who's client centric and not necessarily in it for the revenue, putting the revenue before the client. How many times have we seen this? And I could probably think of a dozen of these over the past 10 years or more, where you're at a say you're at a B2B, business to business, an industry trade show or something, and there's somebody that has a booth or has an exhibit there that they're leading in with, "Oh, come talk to me. We give you $500 per referral." Like they lead in with that instead of, "Hey, come talk to me. We do a really good job for your clients and this is how we do it. And oh, by the way, we give you $500." To me, that's almost a giant red flag out of the gate because they're looking at it as it's monetarily transactional instead of, "Hey, let's build a good relationship. Let's serve these clients well. Even if we never paid you, you never paid us. The clients are going to be happier. They're working with you. They're working with us. Bingo, bango. The train's moving down the road." So sorry, I
And
didn't
if
want to
you're
forget about that
talking
one.
to potential strategic partners, we talk about in our sale, when we talked about on those podcasts about sales and marketing, your best resource if you're trying to grow in your business and increase sales are your ears. So if you go to someone and they're not asking you about your practice, they're just kind of with the script of, "Hey, we do this, we do that." It's like, okay, let's figure out what's best for your clients. I think that we're going to talk about revenue generation, but understanding a couple things. Is this a strategic partner that there is a potential to share revenue legally and ethically? So as tax professionals, a lot of times we have to disclose if we're sharing revenue. Some of the revenue sharing has to occur through licensing. Like for instance, myself, I'm a licensed financial advisor. I'm licensed in life insurance. So I can receive compensation if I work on mutual cases. I have to disclose that to clients, which is no problem. But there are some non-revenue collaborations, which I'm very comfortable doing. I'm not a licensed attorney, so I'm not legally allowed to share in that revenue. No big deal. I just want my clients with the right person. I'm not a licensed realtor. So if I have someone who, you know, um, if someone's asking questions or I can't be compensated for referring someone to a realtor, if that makes sense. Not that that's really a strategic partnership, but it could be. Or we have some strategic partners that are run real estate meetups and stuff and mastermind groups that we work with and provide tax education for. So determining if there's revenue or non-revenue, don't let revenue generation be your
Mm.
barometer of if you should have a strategic partner.
Mhm. And
But
dep and
don't
depending on the
shy
industry,
away from
really,
it.
there could be your best strategic partners could actually be completely abstract and seemingly ridiculous for another one, right? Say you're only focused on veterinary clinics. Well, the dog walker may be a fantastic strategic somehow or another, be a great strategic resource, but that person would absolutely not be to somebody else. So it's every business is different, and that's what really makes it great, right? Like you pick your own holes in the puzzle, but then you gotta go find them.
Right, right. Exactly. That's it. A strategic partner doesn't have to be a revenue partner. It could be just a great alignment. Um, so in those partners are going to protect you. Let's use the dog walker example. If the dog walker is walking a dog and that dog has some serious behavior issues, and you're a veterinarian, they might say, "Look, I'm not just gonna blindly refer my people to whoever. You've got to think about fit too."
Mhm.
So, you want to have a good communication plan. Like you mentioned, do we have check-ins? Do we chat monthly? Do we, for our strategic partners, I put tasks in our CRM to reach out depending on the situation, either every 3 or 6 months, and just book it, "Hey, how's it going? What's they might forget that they might be offering new things or have new processes, and you might want to talk to them about some new things that you're doing as well. So it's a relationship that you need to, we talk about, if you're married, you need to date your spouse, you need to date your strategic partners too. Um, make sure that for me, when we're working with a strategic partner, I'm going to follow up because I want to make sure. Like I'm going to wait. I might wait till I have maybe 8 to 10 referrals sent to them. Then I'm going to follow up and figure out how many were good referrals. If 7 of the 10 were good referrals, then I understand it. If 3 of the 10 were good referrals, then my picker's off, and I'm like, okay, something's just either I'm not understanding what they do or how they operate, or I don't understand their fee schedule, or I'm not understanding my client need. So figuring out that an ROI, I guess, for lack of a better term, and focus on long-term relationships. Like I said, there's so many opportunities to collaborate with these strategic partners, as well. And we've done that. Now, as we wrap up, though, I do want to talk about, like I said, revenue versus non-revenue, and then talk to you about some of our strategic partners, just to be fully transparent. So, a strategic revenue partner was someone that you're going to work with, that you will receive some type of compensation for that relationship. Now, you might for some reason, in the tax and accounting world, that feels like dirty. You know what I mean? But I want you to think about something. I'll give you an example. I live in the Nashville area. Okay, let's say I'm interested, and let's say I work with a realtor here, and I've had a great relationship with that person. I'm interested in buying a home in the Smoky Mountains, a vacation home. My real estate agent probably isn't going to drive to the Smoky Mountains and show me houses, but they're going to help me and guide me through this. And I say, gosh, I'm looking for some. They'll refer me some. Hey, we've got someone in our brokerage over there that I've worked with quite a bit. Why don't you talk to this person? And they will get to about a 25% referral fee for that. Is there anything wrong? You didn't pay any more. You benefited from that relationship. You know that the person that you got referred to is going to say, wow, yep, they were referred by this person. I've already worked with other clients of theirs. They're going to get taken care of really well. So don't shy away from being compensated for strategic partnerships as long as it's legal and ethical. Some strategic partners are non-revenue partnerships, and that's okay. They're alignments or strategic partnerships. If I have a banker I love working with for SBA loans, or maybe two, I will still refer them to that banker. I'm not an employee of the bank. I can't be compensated for this referral. And that's okay. I'm just happy that they're getting put in the right direction.
Well, awesome, Chris. I think that's probably one of the better places to close out with too, is just comparing those two. Because there is, I mean, when you say partnerships, and I'm glad you mentioned this much earlier on too, is it's not like you're on any paperwork with this strategic partner. You're not an owner of their business. They're not an owner of yours. Nobody's getting a K-1. I know that. I do pay attention to you every once in a while, sir. We're not there's no multi-members going on here. So the one thing too, and then I'll shut up and we can let everybody go upon their way here too, is well, actually, Chris, you know what? Is there anything else that you would want to add to this? Because when I say something here, I'm probably going to leave it at this because I want to leave a cliffhanger for any folks.
Oh, I would say just like I said, be transparent. I want to leave everyone with some of the partnerships that we have. So our key partnerships are going to be the people that we have, our tax preparation software, our CRM software, a specialty tax firm doing cost segregation studies, research and development credits, other tax credit and grant, a payroll processing company, a bookkeeping company or companies, a outsourced CFO, estate planning attorneys, business transition specialists. Um, as I said, I'm a licensed financial advisor, so any type of tax advantage investments, financial advisors, and then also a tax mitigation firms. Those are the key ones off the top of my head as for our practice, but it'll be unique for yours.
All right, everybody. I mentioned about a cliffhanger here, so I'm gonna add this in here, and there's no caveat to this at all. I do want you to go back and listen to this show a little bit if you've never seriously considered seeking out some of those strategic partnerships. Now, I say strategic partnerships because that's the focus of this show, but you may call them somebody else. You may call them referral partners. You may call them anything under the sun. Again, name's not important. It's all about what the clients are getting at the end of it and how that relationship goes. So I'll throw in a couple things here, really echoing what Chris said in a much more condensed version. So when you do go hunting, we'll call it, or fishing or scavenging, whatever you want to call this, You want to find those individuals or those businesses, those companies, anybody out there, service providers that, again, align with what you're looking for in the best interests of your clients. So what I say you looking for in the best interests of your clients is you have that relationship. You should really know what your clients are looking for. So go see if you could find that company, that person, that organization, anybody that you can make that connection with. You make that connection, you then are a rock star. I know that term's so overused, but you truly are a rock star to that client. And then the fear factor, right, should slowly decrease on what's going to happen after that relationship or that introduction's made. So think about that. You go out, find that individual, or company again, what they're looking for. But then also to think about it on the flip side, you go out, you find that really good strategic partner, you connect with them. That may actually open up a referral stream coming back to you because now that person, business organization that you're referring to now has you as a resource. So now they might be sending you business. So as Chris mentioned too, there's the revenue and non-revenue generating side of it. It may start off and may actually be no formal exchange of funds. Nobody might be giving anybody any monetary value at all directly from that handoff, but you're both getting so many referrals back and forth that it's monetarily beneficial to the extreme for both of you. So consider that as you venture into this. If you have any questions at all, just reach out to us. We're happy to start some of these introductions for you or connect you with somebody in our mastermind group. Whatever we can do to help you, that is exactly what we are here for at the MRR Institute. So check us out wherever you're listening to this. Keep listening to the podcast, subscribe to these, get those free CPEs, shoot us an email if you want to at hello@mrrinstitute.com, and also check us out on social. Feel free to engage in some of our groups there as well. And as always, we'll see everybody back here on the show. So you can't get rid of us that easy. We'll see you back here on the next episode as we dive into another topic that we've sifted through from our audience of the MRR Institute. All right, everybody, we're in the midst of the holidays. Have a great, great time. Enjoy it as much as you can. We'll see everybody very soon.
You've been listening to the Mr. R Show, presented by the MRR Institute. For more content like this, be sure to check us out on YouTube for weekly expert tips. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast to stay updated on the latest strategies for scaling and modernizing your tax practice. Looking for more? Contact us at mrrinstitute.com for practice resources, coaching opportunities, and a peer-to-peer mastermind group. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer of securities. Offerings can only be made through an offering memorandum, and you should carefully examine the risk factors and other information contained in the memorandum. The content provided is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to seek personalized investment advice from your financial professional. For all tax and legal advice, please consult your CPA or attorney. Investment advisory services are offered through Cabin Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cabin Securities, a registered broker-dealer.